target. We have a couple of beautiful without that we have the music you have been listening to is good old-fashioned Rabindra Sangeet, simply because it's always good to be reminded we have a national language other than Hindi, and that we have an aesthetic beyond Bhangra pop and Bollywood. We are gathered here to honor Mr. Surjit Das. Why are we here? We are here because this very ground that we sit on, these chairs that we sit on, this space that we enjoy, this company that we enjoy every evening here, is kind courtesy this man who thought of it and said there must be a library here and it mustn't be just books. Every person is a walking library, every person has knowledge, and if a community has knowledge and it can be shared, well then whoever has knowledge, please get up and share it. And those who will listen, please come and listen. Which is why we have this space. Okay? So there is much to honor here. You know, this man could have, just sat back and enjoyed, the Odia lands he had. But that was not in his head. He could have just been a very successful bureaucrat. I guess when you're the chief secretary of a state, that's success enough. But that wasn't enough. There were lots and lots of other things that Mr. Das set up. The blood bank that we have here in this city, the revitalized Doon hospital that we have here in this city. This was built from scratch. So we have much to honor here. 2 years ago, Shashwati and I were trying to put together an audio visual that would sufficiently capture a life. And the thing is that no piece of writing, no piece of poetry, no piece of film can ever capture a person, because all they'll show you in a lifetime is, or whatever your exposure to them in that lifetime is, they'll show you something of themselves. The rest is for somebody else to see. So whatever Shashwati and I could see, we put a little AV together. It was an impressionistic capture of a life. We still think it's a fairly relevant little AV today. So I'm going to play it for you if you don't mind. It's a short AV. Nothing heavy, I assure you. बत्तियां बंद कर दीजिएगा जी. and you're an ass. That's what Murphy says. Anyway, here, this little AV lasts just 8 minutes, and what I'm amazed with is how Shashwati put it together to just run like water. 8 minutes finished just like that. And that's as much as the life is. It just goes. Before you know it, it's gone. One day there were conversations with Mr. Das, and you go there and you use your mind like a notebook, because you're going to come away with 30 references of other books and essays and bits and pieces. And you just wonder, God, I can't remember that one or that one, and then you're Googling for the next 3 days. And those were the conversations, and suddenly you're at Haridwar. And it's not a very nice day. That's life. Life. Someone comes, plants a seed. I remember the day Mr. Das walked me into this room. There was nothing here. And he said, Nilas, you have to make IIC over here. So I said, oh mother, that's a tall order. IIC. And another big reference for him was the black hole of Karachi. Yes, sir? Islamabad, sorry. He says, you have to do this here. So we haven't reached there. We're still working on it. These are working day-to-day projects. Someone plants a seed, someone gives it water, someone ties a pole to it so that the plant grows straight, and a room full of gardeners like you nurture that plant, and slowly it grows. So, I'm grateful that we have in this room fairly august mentors and elders of this library. These are our people trees who offer us their shade and their wisdom. And as long as you have elders and mentors, you are shielded from the wrath of the universe. The gaze of the universe falls on their head, not on yours. And you're free to play on the playground that they give you. So, in gratitude, may I call our elders and mentors onto the stage here. First of all, I'd like to call up Shashwati Talukdar, who will be chairing this session. Shashwati made the audio visual on which the battery ran out. She wasn't responsible for the battery. I'd like to invite Mr. P. Sainath, our speaker of the evening. Our host for the evening is Mrs. Vibhapuri Das, who retired as the Secretary of Higher Education in the Ministry of Human Resource Development. Every year she enables us to receive the benefit of one marvelous mind or another. First it was Dr. Ganesh Devi, known for creating the People's Linguistic Survey of India and the Adivasi Academy, also credited with starting the Bhasha Research and Publication Centre. Then we have our people tree who goes into dialysis 3 times a week now, but still gives us shade and space. Dr. B.K. Joshi, please. Then we have our current mentor and elder who works vociferously day in and day out to secure better space, better everything for us on a day-to-day basis. I would invite Mr. N. Ravi Shankar, please. If I may please request Mr. N. Ravi Shankar to please welcome everybody to this session. Thank you, sir.
the keynote speaker of the evening, Shri P. Sainath ji, Mrs. Vivapuri Das ma'am, Professor B.K. Joshi, Chair Ms. Shashwati Talukdar, ladies and gentlemen. As the video got interrupted a bit, I would like to add some more, because then it sort of enlivens the evening. Mr. Surjit Das, former district magistrate of Dehradun, I think that's his first attribute I would put, and subsequently former chief secretary of the state. My first interaction with him was when he was district magistrate of Dehradun. I was a young officer posted somewhere else, and I happened to come to Dehradun to meet my uncle who used to work in the Indian Military Academy. I just thought it fit, why not make a courtesy call, because I was in some other far-flung district, so I thought why not make a courtesy call on the district magistrate. It was a Sunday, I still recollect it. Sunday morning, and I saw a gentleman with, I went to the DM residence, which is on the bank on the Rajpur Road. Went in, just, in those days there were not too many security guards and all. So it was easy to get in, and then there was a gentleman outside with a transistor who was listening to radio commentary, and those were the good old days. And I also am a cricket fan or pagalpan. So I asked him what's the score. So then he mentioned it, then he asked, who are you and what have you come here for? I said, so I'm so and so, I have just come. So that was a man who was very warm, welcoming, and once I introduced myself, he called me in and offered me tea, etc. And we had a nice chat on cricket. So my memory of Mr. Das is a huge cricket fan. He had many other things in life, and as Nicholas has mentioned, he wanted to make this an IIC. See, often enough he used to tell me, you see, that canteen should be made fine so that we can come have a cup of coffee and then chat and then go. So we tried our best. It may not be IIC standard, but still, I think the ambience is something which we try to uplift. He used to keep sharing a number of notes, and in fact, I must say one thing. I took over this position of honorary director of Doon Library by the decree of Mr. S.K. Das and the desire of Professor Joshi. So I'm saying decree because one day he said Professor Joshi has to keep going to dialysis so often, so I think you should step in and you should take over. I said, sir, I'm not the right person. He said, you read books? I said, yes. So then you can come and be in the library. That's about all. So I just thought I will introduce this for Mr. Sainath and others who may not know. And I just thought that this is a good evening, and Mrs. Vivapuri Das has initiated this series of lectures, as we may call it, so that we are in a position to keep the engagement on. When we had Dr. Devi who talked about the linguistic issues, that was quite a revelation. And every such author was someone whom Sri S.K. Das would be very keenly following. He was a man of many parts. That's the way I would like to put him. Not just confined to the bureaucracy, but a literary taste. And he had multiple thoughts in his head, as even the Islamabad house or some such thing. So he had these things, he shared these things often enough. He always was in a bit of a hurry, I will say, because he wanted these things to keep coming by as soon as possible. We have in the last few years managed to fill up all of the things, including the Petshali Museum, which was his, and then his own contributions through those Gandhi sketches and stamps and coins, etc. And in one of the earlier meetings, we requested the state government, we would like to have an expansion. So it's like a Dil Mange mode. So from something which was nothing to here, and then we are thinking big. And that's because I think Mr. Das laid the seed of thought in all of us to push beyond the limits. With these few words of introduction, paying my own homage to Mr. Surjit Das, I welcome you all to this August gathering here, where we look forward to an engaging evening with Sri P. Sainath. Thank you.
I'd like to now request Mrs. Vibhapuri Das and Dr. B.K. Joshi to please present a very small memento of this occasion to Mr. Sainath, please. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. May I now request Dr. B.K. Joshi to please say a few words about this.
Gentlemen, it is my privilege to welcome you all to the third S.K. Das Memorial Lecture, which we are organizing this afternoon. We have with us a very distinguished person. I'm sure we'll get a fuller introduction to Mr. Sainath from Nicholas a little later. But all I would like to say here is that when we met to decide who would deliver the third S.K. Das Memorial Lecture, we unanimously came to the conclusion that Mr. Sainath was the appropriate person for this occasion. And I'm very happy to say that he accepted our invitation. I was a bit apprehensive whether he would accept our invitation for the lecture, but he accepted our invitation, and we are here today to listen to him. About the lecture series, this is a joint effort of the Surjit Das family and the Doon Library Research Centre. The Surjit Das family, led by Mrs. Vibhapuri Das, had provided financial assistance for this lecture series, which we have been organizing now. This is the third lecture in the series. The first lecture, as Nicholas just told us, was delivered by Professor Ganesh Devi on the making of India as a linguistic civilization. The second lecture in 2025 was delivered by Mr. Vipul Budgal, the CEO of Common Cause, on PILs as a tool for democracy. Now, the choice of these two speakers was largely based on the association which Mr. Surjit Das had with these people. In fact, after retirement, when we was living in Delhi for a short time, before Mrs. Vibhapuri Das retired, he was associated with Common Cause. And therefore, we thought it appropriate to invite the CEO of Common Cause for the lecture. For the third lecture, we were looking for someone who shared the ideas, the concerns which Mr. Das had. And we unanimously zeroed in on Mr. Sainath. Mr. Sainath, I'll briefly mention because I think a longer invitation will be given by my colleague Nicholas, is not just a journalist. He is a journalist who looks at things, looks at issues from the perspective of the people down below. And that, I think, is an issue that we all prize. If I may use a very hackneyed phrase, he does not give us a bird's eye view, he gives us the worm's eye view. And it is the ordinary people, the people who are struggling, the farmers, the laborers, who have been his concern. And that, we thought, was a very appropriate tribute to Mr. Surjit Das. Mr. Surjit Das was associated with this library when he was the Chief Secretary of Uttarakhand. As the Chief Secretary, he was the chairman of the governing body. But more than that, he took a very personal interest in the development of this library. And I shared a very warm relationship with him. Although I was 8 or 9 years senior to him, but we shared a bond, and I looked up to him for guidance in developing the library. I still remember that when we inaugurated the library at some sort of a hovel behind here, which is the parade ground, Mr. N.D. Tiwari was the Chief Minister, and he had been requested by Mr. Das to inaugurate the library. We were waiting for him, and it was suggested to me, Mr. Das said, "You do all the talking, we will just sit there." Because I asked him to welcome the Chief Minister, and he says, "No, I will not do anything of sort. I will just sit there, you do all the talking." And the Director of Education, who was also part of our system, suggested to me that you ask Mr. Tiwari for 50 lakhs, maybe he'll give you 25 lakhs for the library. That was a big money at that time. So Mr. Das turned around and said, "मांगने में कंजूसी नहीं करनी चाहिए. Ask for 1 crore and maybe he'll give you 50 lakhs. So I did as I was tutored to do, and Mr. Tiwari being Mr. Tiwari, he said, "I've been asked for 1 crore, I'll give 2 crores to the library." So that is how the library became started its life. So Mr. Das later on told me that Mr. Tiwari had asked him, "Should I give some money?" I said, "हाँ 50 lakh दे दीजिएगा." But Mr. Tiwari upped it to 2 crores, and the library started from there. Mr. Das took a lot of interest in the development of the library, even while we were in that small space out there. And in fact, this particular location was identified by him for the library. If I may share with you, this space was being used as a dharna sthal. This was the official dharna sthal in Dehradun. And Mr. Das felt that the proper use for this should be a library. Now the problem was, how does one get rid of the dharna sthal and establish a library? Here we were held by the COVID epidemic, because when everything came to a halt, this place was transferred to the Nagar Nigam, And then from the Nagar Nigam it went to the smart city, and the smart city was asked to construct the library. Fortunately, we had got money from the National Airports Authority. I think it was 7.5 crores for the construction of the library building. And the smart city supplemented it, and so that is how the library came into being. When we had this hall, because earlier we used to have our program in various halls, maybe some hotel or something, which is proving to be expensive, so we couldn't have too many of those programs. Maybe once in 3 weeks or once a month or so. When we had this hall, Mr. Das told me that we should develop this on the pattern of a hall in Islamabad called the Black Hole. I mean, the Black Hole had been set up by a physicist, Mr. Hoodbhoy. And they were organizing all kinds of programs, and you go to their website and you will find the kind of variety of programs that they organize. And Mr. Das said that we should develop this place on the pattern of the Black Hole of Islamabad. Although we haven't reached there, as Nicholas said, we are trying our best, and we hold a lot of programs. It now runs into a few hundred per year. And more than that, it's becoming a place where organizations in Dehradun like to hold their own programs. So we started off by saying we'll have one program a week, but now I think we have come to 2, 3, or sometimes even 4 programs a week. So this is, I think, a tribute to the vision of Mr. Surjit Das. So with these words, I would like to pay my own respects to him, welcome Mr. Sainath to the 3rd Surjit Das Memorial Lecture, and we are very keen to hear what he has to say, because he's been, I think the topic that he has chosen is about inequality, which is, I think, something which we should all be concerned about. So, welcome once again, and I sit back and enjoy today's lecture. Thank you.
Needs no introduction, and I'll hand over everything to him. But no, I'm not copping out. I think you need to hear the full Monty about him. Okay? With so much wonderful work packed into a library, I'd really like to introduce Mr. Sainath to you good and proper, if you don't mind. In another 3 months and 5 days, Mr. Sainath will be 68 years young. And what a lot he's packed into this life. Dr. Amartya Sen called him one of the world's great experts on famine and hunger. His book, Everybody Loves a Good Drought, is a collection of his field reports as a journalist and focuses on different aspects of rural deprivation in India. Across his working life, he has written extensively on rural India, particularly on poverty, structural inequities, caste discrimination, and farmer protests. These are all slightly unpopular topics in this country right now. So enjoy the bulldozer full he's going to give you, hopefully. In terms of a lifetime of journalism, Mr. Sainath's working life began at 23 at the United News of India in 1980. He worked for over a decade with the Blitz in Bombay, first as Foreign Affairs editor, then as deputy editor. Post the 1991 economic reforms in India, he was of the view that media attention was focusing on consumerism and lifestyles of the urban elite and ignoring the realities of poverty in India. So he magnetized a fellowship that enabled him to travel across the 10 poorest districts of 5 Indian states. A journey that covered about 100,000 kilometers, of which he walked about 5,000 kilometers. The Times of India ran 84 of the reports that emerged over 18 months. And many of these articles were subsequently reprinted in his book, Everybody Loves a Good Drought. He was later the rural affairs editor at The Hindu until his resignation in 2014. And the website India Together has archived the reports that he filed at The Hindu. His observations and writings have been hugely impactful, enough to prompt the revamping of the drought management programs in the state of Tamil Nadu, the development of policy on indigenous medical systems in Malkangiri in Odisha, and the revamping of the area development program for tribal people in Madhya Pradesh. The Times of India, which took the focus away from page 1 and the editorial page onto the fripperies of page 3, went so far as to institutionalizing his methods of reporting, and after that 60 other leading newspapers initiated columns on poverty and rural development. Mr. Sainath has devoted considerable energy to academia too. He was a senior fellow at the Tricontinental Institute for Social Research. He served as the McGraw Professor of Writing at Princeton. He became the first ThoughtWorks Chair Professor in Rural India and Digital Knowledge at the Asian College of Journalism that was set up with the joint energies of the Media Development Foundation backed by forces within the Hindu and the B.D. Goenka Foundation. He held the Cody Chair in Social Justice at St. Francis Xavier University in Canada. In terms of awards, Mr. Sainath's awards are limited. And they're limited to just those awards that he will accept. He was the first Indian reporter to win the European Commission's Lorenzo Natali Prize for journalism in 1995. In 2000, he won the inaugural Amnesty International Global Human Rights Journalism Prize and the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization's Borma Prize. 2006 brought the Harry Chapin Media Award in New York. 2000 was another good award year. It saw him win the Ramnath Goenka Journalist of the Year Award and the Raymond Magsaysay Award for Journalism and Creative Communications Arts. He was given the award for his passionate commitment as a journalist to restore the rural poor to India's national consciousness. He also won the inaugural World Media Summit Global Award for Excellence in Public Welfare for exemplary news professionals in developing countries. In 2021, when he won the Fukuoka Grand Prize, one of Japan's most prestigious international awards, he kept aside the 5 million yen prize money for two purposes. 1 million to families of rural journalists who lost their lives to COVID-19, and 2.3 million rupees to set up the People's Archive of Rural India Fellowships for rural journalists from Dalit and Adivasi communities. He has turned down a couple of awards also. Two of them I will mention. One was the YSR Lifetime Achievement Award from the AP government that carried ₹1 million with it. And there's the small matter of the Padma Shri. Padma Bhushan, was it? Apologies. So, among the distinguished members of this audience in this library, we have a marvelous personage who kick-started the award Vapsi movement in this country. Mr. Sainath's implicit declaration of "keep your awards, sweetheart, you will buy neither silence nor complicity" is absolutely wonderful. Salute, sir.
Nicholas,
As if, yes sir,
I would like to add only one thing.
please do sir.
That I feel distinguished that in Province JNU, it is MA in history from JNU, where I also studied. I forgot to mention it.
Wonderful sir.
He's from JNU. He studied MA history from JNU.
Right sir. Thank you for that. So, for those of you who are netizens, keen netizens, many of you will know that he founded the People's Archive of Rural India, PARI, in 2014. This is an online platform that focuses on social and economic inequality, rural affairs, poverty, and the aftermath of globalization in India. His views are probably going to get even sharper once the newly signed wonderful US-India deal begins to bite into India's farm sector. As if all this was not enough, Mr. Sainath is also a photographer. His international exhibit, Visible Work, Invisible Women, Women and Work in Rural India, has probably been seen by over 600,000 people in India alone. Mr. Sainath was awarded a Doctor of Letters by the University of Alberta in Edmonton and another by the St. Francis Xavier University in Nova Scotia. And yet, when you go to pick him up from his hotel, he just says, "I'm Sainath." When he gets into his stride, he works up a really wonderful acidic froth all over the place. And I'm hoping that's what he will do this evening too. He sometimes ascends into French, and I'm hoping he will do that this evening too. We are all big boys and girls here, and I'm sure a little Frenching is fine. So, ladies and gentlemen, permit me to present your speaker of the evening at the 3rd Surjit Das Memorial Lecture, Mr. P. Sainath.
Very generous introduction, Nicholas. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to do the 3rd lecture. I should mention that both the previous speakers are very dear friends, especially Dr. Ganesh Devi. Because PARI, the People's Archive of Rural India, is the only journalism outlet in the world that publishes every day in 15 languages. There are others who do it in more, but all languages are treated as equal. Like, for instance, BBC has output in 40 languages. What you get in BBC Hindi will be 3% or 4% of what you'll get in BBC English. Our rule is, if something appears in any of the 15, it has to appear in all the other 14. Yeah. There is and our slogan is, every Indian language is my language. Yeah. It might interest you to know that among the 15 languages, we publish in Bhojpuri and Chhattisgarhi also. Yeah. I maintain, I'm sure Professor Devi has been far more eloquent about this than I can ever be, but I believe the problem of imposition of Hindi has been worst in the Hindi belt. You look at it, the great languages of the north, Bhojpuri, Awadhi, Braj Bhasha. Which great epic was written in this 140-year-old contrived language called Hindi? But today, we call Bhojpuri, Magadhi, Braj Bhasha, we call them dialects. Those are the languages that have 1,500 to 1,200 years of literature in them. You call them dialects, and you call a constructed thing of half a dozen people. Confession, I won a prize in the name of that most important person, who was one of the Mahavir Prasad Dwivedi. In fact, in the language history, it's called the Dwivedi Yuga. Yeah. The historians of Hindi call it that. with, you created such a Sanskritized Hindi by purging anything Arabic, Urdu, Persian out of it, and their counterparts retaliated by removing any Bhojpuri, Magadhi, anything from Urdu and Persianized it completely. When I was a kid, there was a cartoon in, I think maybe the Express at that time, which said All India Radio broadcasts in 3 great languages that nobody speaks. Sanskritized Hindi, Persianized Urdu, and Queen's English. They're only spoken in the studios of All India Radio. Yeah, so what's spoken outside? Anyway, so PARI tries, we are trying in the short term that we should be publishing in every one of the 22 languages of the ancient. Though I will say that I have a prejudice and I'm going very slowly on Sanskrit. I've had it coming out of my ears with these guys. Yeah. So, on the subject of the age of inequality, and I'd also said, what should we be doing as writers, poets? I'm going to start with something on which I'm desperate that no writer, no poet, I'm going to have to do it myself, has done anything. But an incident barely, not 2 years old yet, which gives us an idea of how much our moral universe has shifted. In July 24, the great Ambani wedding happened. Anant Ambani. The amount spent, by the way, the wedding was not just a wedding, there were 3 to 6 months of pre-wedding events, including a cruise around Europe and which stopped at various points on the Lake Geneva and went all the way up to Italy, and even had the distinction of being ordered off the premises by a restaurant owner for their bad behavior in Geneva. They probably bought up the restaurant after that to teach him a lesson. But anyway, so then there were 3 days of pre-events in Jamnagar, at which, by incidentally, speak of getting a nation into a wedding, Jamnagar airport was turned into an international airport. Yeah? And who do you think were the ATCs? It was Indian Air Force did the air traffic control. The Indian Air Force did the air traffic control, and Jamnagar was for about 2 weeks an international airport. Jamnagar is also home to the greatest wildlife rescue center in the world. Normally rescue centers have 30 to 40 animals, not 700 species. And you get all these extremely endangered species through smuggling. Brazil and half a dozen other countries have filed complaints at CITES. And mind you, you bring elephants from Arunachal Pradesh, 30 of them. And where are they all parked? Right next to the world's largest petroleum refinery. What must be their AQI? If someone works out an air quality index for Vantara, that would be an interesting thing. But back to the wedding. So 3 days was the pre-wedding, where anybody who was anybody was present. Just imagine, 30 years ago, I think many of you in the audience can remember 30 years ago. Had a wedding like this occurred, costing $620 million, in the estimate that the Ambanis have not contradicted. They don't want to contradict it, they want you to know. They want you to know we spent this money. Okay? So, yeah. And that's a little over 5,000 crores. Probably more now considering what we've done to the rupee in the last 2 months. But at that time it was a little over 5,000 crores. And 30 years ago, had you had a wedding like this, on this scale, I think Vijay Tendulkar would have scripted and staged a play, Ambani Ki Shadi. Yeah. I think a Gobind Nihalani or a Saeed Mirza, yeah, would have had a scathing film on it. What we had was extreme approval and celebration in the media that are entirely corporate owned. Mr. Ambani, by the way, is the largest media owner in the country. Apart from, yeah, he is. Let me explain a few things that you may not know. Many of you may be looking at ETV Hindi, ETV Marathi, and you think it's Enadu TV, Mr. Ramoji Rao's child. It is Mr. Ramoji Rao's child, but the child has developed foster parents about 20 years ago. Except for the Telugu 5 channels, Telugu channels, all the 19 Enadu channels are owned by they're owned by Mukesh Bhai, who bought them created a most interesting vehicle called Independent Media Trust or Independent Media Association. They're independent of everybody except Mukesh Bhai. And the media, you can see, I mean, they had astonishing amounts of coverage of who did the dresses, who did this, who did that. The fact that Shah Rukh and Salman and all were dancing for this wedding, all this stuff was covered excellently. Not one word. The BBC said most Indians seem to be quite happy with it, which actually prompted me to break out of my social media laziness and give it to the BBC. Yeah, there is something that the irony of which escaped a lot of people. This wedding took place in Mumbai, Maharashtra. Every year, the state of Maharashtra, which is the worst affected state in India's agrarian crisis, accounting for more than a fifth of all farmer suicides, every year, hundreds and in some years, thousands of weddings, farmers' weddings, are called off because neither family can afford them. As early as 2009, I did a story, the entire data from the government of Maharashtra's website, which said that, I mean, we had incited them in the first place to get such a survey done. The survey said that of the 6 districts of Vidarbha, by the way, is a very large place. It's much bigger. It's twice the size of Punjab almost. But just 6 districts of the 11 in Vidarbha, the government of Maharashtra survey found in 6 districts 300,000 families, 3 lakh families, which declared that they were unable to get their daughters married. Now that doesn't mean 3 lakh girls. It could mean 5 lakh girls. It's 3 lakh families. Okay? And Jaideep Hardikar and I, we did a lot of stories at that time. Girls all over, girls in the villages unmarried at age 29. I mean, at 23 you're not married in those kind of villages, you're over. Anyway, if it's of any amusement to you, the boot is now on the other foot. It's the boys who can't get married. Because no parent is today willing to give his daughter to a farmer. Not one. So in every village there are guys in their 30s who are unmarried. And my friend Hardikar, my colleague, did a lovely story for which he managed to get several of the boys together, which is it takes a lot of time. He did it in 1 hour through a very enterprising young fellow in the village. He went and told his friends in that village that I want to do this story, and I'm hearing there are so many boys unmarried. And the fellow said, yes sir, our village is full of them. Jaideep said, can I talk to 5 of them, 3? He said, Chinta mat karo. We'll have, you come back in 1 hour because you're going to other villages. We'll have them all assembled outside the temple. There will be at least 10, 15, 20. Jaideep went back in an hour, there were 80 young men there. And Jaideep asked him, asked the boy who was smirking, how the hell did you do this? How the heck did you manage to mobilize all of them? He told Jaideep, I told them you're a marriage broker. From shadi.com or something like that. The Marathi version. So all those boys showed up in great hope. This is the Marathi shadi.com. And of course, they took it quite nicely when they realized they could vent with this report. Now this is the state where thousands of weddings are called off, where thousands of people are declaring we cannot get our son married, we cannot get our daughter married. And you spend a mere $620 million to get your son married. That's what I say. And then, of course, all the media, Mr. Ambani is the largest owner of media. I forgot to mention another thing. Those media that he is not the owner of, he is the largest luxury advertiser. Okay? He is the biggest advertiser in the media he doesn't know. So, a private advertiser, after government. So you've got the media giving its stamp of approval, plus hundreds of people, influencers. Nowadays they're called finfluencers because finance is the driving element of their work. Hundreds of influencers who made the wedding sound absolutely ethereal, wonderful. One gave the game away when she declined it and wrote on her Twitter feed on X that I was offered 6 lakhs or something, and I said 3 lakhs something to do so many. I said no. Very commendable, though I'm not sure whether, it's not clear whether she refused it because the money wasn't enough. I don't know. But she turned it down, and full credit for that. Nowhere did she say the reasons that she turned it down. She just said, I refused this thing. Now, even from an entirely detached point of view, now, I don't have to talk to an audience like you and tell you how obscene this is, etc. You all know it. Further discussion of the obscenity is going to lead to what? To somebody puking. But me, I saw and I see and I maintain that the wedding was a brilliant business investment. And you can see why. And former senior government officers will know exactly what I'm talking about. At any given moment, from the 90s till now, at any given moment in the state governments or at the central government, the large corporations through their chief representatives are in a process of negotiation with government for further leasing of public resources. Like, Mr. Adani is given 79,000 acres of Hasdeo forest in Chhattisgarh. But he wants more. There also, it is purse mange more. So, senior bureaucrats in charge of various public resources are under constant pressure from their own ministers, from people within the ministry and others. Indian billionaires, by the way, the main source of wealth of Indian billionaires is what you call rentier income or rentier wealth. They're levying rents and sublets and subleases and subcontracts, like the Samruddhi Highway, where about 200 contracts have been given in Maharashtra alone so I go and get the big contract for KG gas basin, Krishna Godavari gas basin. I'm not going to do 5 paisas worth of drilling. I've got subcontractors to do that, each of whom will pay me something. So I'm essentially levying a rent on your property, on public resources. And much of the wealth of the Indian billionaires comes from the money they make, the rents they make of public resources. So this is one very major thing. Oil and natural gas is a very, very big sector for this. You know that absolutely obscene building in which Mr. Mukesh Bhai lives? Antilia. You know why what puzzles most of you? It's modeled on an oil rig. Because that's where they got their wealth from. Yeah, go and have a look at it. It's like the oil rig they have on Bombay. They got an architect to, the architect's visualization or dream or nightmare or whichever. You should also know that the building has 27 stories but is built to the height of 60 stories. See, Mukesh Bhai has claustrophobia, so he needs high roofs. And so there are 27 floors built to the height of 60 floors. Yeah? And, well, never mind, we will let them have their fun. The thing is, why did I say it's a brilliant business investment? I say it's a brilliant business investment because $620 million, I calculated at that time, was 0.27% of Mr. Ambani's wealth, as calculated by Forbes magazine. You've heard of Forbes magazine, the oracle of global capitalism, the billionaire's Bible. And every year, by the way, Forbes on March 8th, International Women's Day, puts out a list of the world's billionaires, every country. Yeah. For some reason, they always put it out on International Women's Day. Though there are very few women maybe it's an aspirational thing. You also can do it if you work hard. My favorite website, I keep looking at it. Aspirational thing. Yeah, maybe one day we will find your own name in it. So, anyway, the Forbes billionaires list, which now at any given moment of the year, some deals are going on. Like right now, the arguments are going on for concessions in the third airport of Mumbai, including who will get the telecom part of the airport. And Mr. Ambani is mighty peeved with the government because they've given it exclusively to Adani. So, at any given time, the large corporations are pressurizing government to release more resources to them on which they can make money off public property. Now some of the officers who I know, very honest people, have resisted it, said, I mean, come on here, how can I give you more? If I do this, there will be an outcry from here. You're not going to get that invite if you're in charge of, plumbing and poultry farming. But if you're sitting on minerals, resources, the secretaries of government were also invited. So you see, he has invested 0.2, he has invested $620 million. Over the next 4 years, he may get 5 times that much from the contracts he pushes, from the concessions he gains in the next year after the wedding. When it's all etched in mind, and after that there's a new generation of senior officers and you go through all that game again.
But Rahul Gandhi can go.
Yeah.
Rahul Gandhi will be invited, he can go.
That's right. I mean, but let's look at the larger billionaire canvas of India. I don't know, it seems that people forget that one of the things that your constitution exhorts you is to fight inequality. Okay? The part 4, the directive principles of state policy, begin with a paragraph of introduction saying the levels of inequality, you cannot have the resources of the community concentrated in the hands of a few. You have to fight inequality. Your constitution exhorts you to follow that. Your preamble tells you justice for all, social, economic, political. Yeah. How can you have justice when you have a blatant robbing of the looting of the poor, of their resources, of their forests, of the lands that they are sitting on, which Mr. Adani wants for some solar farm, whatever. Yeah. This country has been in violation, gross violation of very important principles of its constitution every day since 1991, when we embraced neoliberalism, when we embraced a particular neoliberal globalization, a particular kind of globalization that we embraced. And in 1991, there were $0 billionaires in India. The studies of Thomas Piketty and others show you that from 1956 to 1980s, income inequality, for instance, declined in India. It came down. From 91, you reverse that and it expands massively, massively. Okay? We didn't have a single dollar billionaire in 91. Yeah. My last look, we had 211. And that makes us, by the way, the number 3 nation in the world in terms of billionaires. Number 3 in billionaires, number 132 in human development, in the United Nations Human Development Report. And by the way, getting to that number 3 position was no mean achievement. For about a period of 10 years, there was intense competition. Even now, China is ahead of us. USA is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. Then comes China, then comes us. But I'm very pleased to tell you that our per capita net worth of our billionaires is greater than those of the Chinese billionaires. At one time, Russia also was there. But, I mean, how does one take the Russians seriously? Every 5 years they send half their billionaires to prison. We send ours to parliament. Mature democracy. Right. Do you know that the inequality I'm talking about, you can look in your parliament. In 2004, we introduced the electoral affidavit where you state, you state your own wealth. You're not required to attach an income tax form, return nothing. Your word
Declare.
is, your self-declaration is great. And even allowing for, the fact that usually leads to a rash of modesty in self-declaration, that Lok Sabha had 33% of all members of parliament were Karodpatis. You can get all this data yourself just going up to the website of Association for Democratic Reforms, ADR. Yeah, ADR. You can do that and you can look at them. 2009, it went up to 53%. 2000, and by the way, some of the returning MPs were adding assets of 6,000% higher than the previous term in Parliament. Then you come to 2019, it is 82%. In 2024, ADR tells us it was 88%. Okay. Now 88% of members of parliament, 88% of Karodpatis are going to represent the poorest people in the planet. Go figure. How are they going to do that? How are they going to do that? Yeah, they're going to represent the poorest people in the thing. All the things that I have covered every election, general election since 1980. It's astonishing what a toll wealth and inequality has taken. I live in Amchi, Mumbai. The BMC elections, the Brihan Mumbai Corporation elections, saw ruling party candidates, some of them, spending much more than candidates for Lok Sabha had spent in 2024. And it's a wonderful tribute to our people that there were still many of them defeated. But, don't get over optimistic about it. Okay? It works. The inequality of access, by the way, the inequalities we are now introducing institutionally and have entrenched for some time, like in the judiciary. I'm going to do a little plug for a book of which I am one author. Justice S. Muralidhar has published a book, 75 Years of the Indian Supreme Court, and he calls it Incomplete Justice. I was asked for my sins to write the chapter on, I'm the only non-lawyer, which pleased me no end, that only non-legal person to write in that. See, academics, legals, though I come from a background in academics, scientists, legalese people, the problem which we keep training them out of in people's archive is no academic or no great jurist will ever use a 2-syllable word where one with 9 syllables is available. Right? So you then need a committee to interpret what they've written. So I think that was the only reason that Muralidhar asked me to write. I've written that chapter. You just look at how completely your access, your wealth, how it reflects on who you are, whether you're going to get bail or not. I can predict for you any time you're going to the Supreme Court. I can tell you you're not going to get bail. I can tell you he is going to get bail. Yeah. In 3 days, the Supreme Court of the country gave you 2 judgments, one which said bail is the rule, jail is the exception. 3 days later, they extended the imprisonment of Umar Khalid and Sharjeel Imam on the grounds that they have occupied a higher level in the hierarchy of conspiracy. Now you've not had the first hearing that there is a conspiracy. You've not had a first bloody hearing that there is a bloody conspiracy, but you've already decided who are staffing the senior ranks of the conspiracy. All are equal before the law. So, in talking about inequality in that axis, the first example I used was the massacre of Kumbher in Rajasthan. The Kumbher massacre, where 19 Dalits were butchered by landowners when they were fighting for higher wages as agricultural laborers. 9 years later, I went back to Kumbher and I met Chunilal Jatar, a leftist leader of that village. He was one of the survivors. And by the way, one of the ways Chunilal Jatar survived through history, when working he was with the small savings department. Wherever he went, he called himself Chunilal Jat. He excised the AV, and he was a big, tall, strapping fellow, so he got away with it. Otherwise, he wouldn't get rental anywhere. He wouldn't get accommodation anywhere. Not in the great land of Rajasthan, I can tell you. So, Chunilal kept telling me things, and I kept telling him, Chunilal ji, ye nahi ho sakta hai. It's against the law. You should appeal to the higher court. You should go to the Supreme Court. And by the way, everything that he told me came true. He said, this case will not reach the Supreme Court. And then even if it does, Sainath ji and him gave me one of the most profound quotes I have ever heard on the matter of justice and courts. On courts and justice. He got tired of my yakking and said, Sainath ji, all the learned judges of the Supreme Court do not have the power of my local Havaldar. The learned judges listen to the learned lawyers and interpret the law. My Havaldar writes his own laws. Impunity, arbitrariness, that is the architecture of inequality. The superstructural architecture of inequality. All the learned judges of the Supreme Court do not have the power of my Havaldar. Do you know that the number of cases that this judgment came in 25? The judgment came in 2025, holding 41 people guilty. Incidentally, of the 83 accused, 32 have died. Because it's God knows how many years. It's more than 23 years, 25 years. Of the remaining, they acquitted a huge number, and some 9 people were convicted. Immediately, the Jaipur High Court lost no time in granting a stay on that. Yeah, they're out on bail. Bail is the rule when you are the right person. Yeah. So this is what happens with that case. Now you look at Ashok Kumar Teni's son, who during the farmers' agitation drove his SUV into farmers, killing totally 9 people died that day, 5 of them under the wheels of his car. He's out on bail. If you are urban, rich, whatever, you are. Maybe I find it very entertaining. I have no idea why, and I'm not too motivated to find out. But some of you may have noticed that Arnab Goswami has suddenly become critical. So, I have no. Don't ask me for insights into that. It's too taxing on the brain. But one program I watched, he was attacking the way that rich people get bail. And saying this case, this person has got bail. This rich person has got bail. He got bail in 90 days. Arnab Goswami got bail in 24 hours. He was an accused in a case of abetment to suicide. And the case is still there. He was arrested by the Maharashtra government because it was the anti-BJP Shiv Sena government. Yeah. The case goes to the Supreme Court. Mr. Justice Chandrachud calls a hearing at late in the evening in his place and says history will not forgive us if we do not intervene in this case. Because freedom of expression, freedom of speech is at stake. At the same time, a journalist called Siddiq Kapal went 3 years to jail. Yeah? For nothing, for going and trying to cover the Hathras gang rape. For trying to cover the Hathras gang rape, he is completely kicked out. I picked up, he gets COVID while in jail, Siddiq. He is not taken to the hospital. Then all of us made a huge outcry. He was taken to the Mathura hospital where he was chained to the bed and asked to urinate in a bottle because we can't keep taking you to the bathroom every 5 hours or 3 hours or whatever. Yeah. I'm sorry for that digression. Back to my billionaires who are these billionaires? The 211 billionaires, their total wealth is more than, well over $1 trillion. Over $1 trillion. And you can see it's really called gangster capitalism or disaster capitalism. From 91, when we embraced the new political path, new economic path, we started adding billionaires. It took a little time. 2006 we started adding them at the rate of 3 to 4 to 5 a year. In the first year of COVID, we added 42. 24 of whom were from the pharma and health sector. 24 of them. All my figures are Forbes, okay? I trust them on billionaires. Yeah. So, 24 of the 42. Imagine that in 24 months of COVID, we added more billionaires than we had added in the preceding decade. In the preceding 8 years, for sure. Yeah. Now, I think the COVID addition of billionaires is extremely important for another reason. What is that reason? You see, the promise of capitalism and everything else is that as you produce wealth, the cake gets bigger and everybody gets whatever crumbs they get. Remember, first year of COVID, the economy, GDP tanked 7.7%. It tanked 7.7% according to Government of India. Other independent estimates said 9%, 12%. But the government said, and of course, once the Vishwa Guru has spoken, you can't accuse him of lying. Right. So, I mean, he's the Vishwa Guru. So, once he said 7.7%, ask yourself this question. If the economy tanked 7.7%, but India's billionaires doubled their wealth and doubled their number, where did that wealth come from? It came from sucking it up from below. You can't do it from a bigger cake because your cake has taken, somebody has taken that knife to your cake. So when you did decrease your wealth, when you did decrease your GDP, how come your billionaires doubled in number and then doubled in total net worth? Right, so that is something, that is the giveaway point over there. There is no way in which you can prove your, or let's take another promise of capitalism. Let's take this promise. as you can see, I keep tracking Mr. Ambani's and Mr. Adani's wealth. 2021, and your media, did any of your media ever tell you that those 200,000 farmers gathered at the gates of Delhi, that was the largest democratic, constitutional, legal, peaceful struggle for justice organized in the world in 30 years. Before that, the most famous one was Occupy Wall Street, where a few thousand highly motivated youngsters whom I love them for it, occupied Zuccotti Park on Wall Street, which is a privately owned park. Mind you, the private owner of the park was somewhat sympathetic to the kids. He didn't ask them to get out. He didn't want them evicted. He could have done that, but he did. Yet, 9 weeks into it, the mayor of New York told the NYPD, throw the scumbags out. And less than 24 hours, Zuccotti Park was serene, all shut. Yeah? 9 weeks is what the most famous movement for justice lasted, with 7,000 or 8,000 people. Your farmers held out 54 weeks in Delhi's worst winter in 40 years, Delhi's worst summer in a decade, Delhi's worst rains in I don't know in how many years. 720 of them died in the camps of COVID, of hypothermia, of 80-year-olds, 75-year-olds, and the government shows up with just about every paramilitary force. Delhi police, Punjab police, Haryana police, they bring CRPF. I'm not sure, I did see a couple of guys from the ITBP as well, Indo-Tibetan Border Patrol, but never mind. They had the CISF, the CRPF, all kinds of paramilitary. They dug 10 feet by 20 feet trenches in the national highway. The same government which had passed a law penalizing political parties and demonstrators who damage national property, the government ordered the digging of those trenches, and there's about hundreds of feet of, about 2 kilometers worth of concertina wire, barbed wire. They bring ship transportation containers, hundreds of them, put that there to stop the farmers from advancing on the city of Delhi. Yeah, they bring water cannon and hit these, two guys whom I had spoken to, 78, 80, died soon after. You're being hit by icy cold water in that winter. Yeah. What did your media ever tell you about this? The journalism of courage, Express would say, government has done very wrong. They've not learned how to talk to the farmers properly. Meaty baat say, after all, they're all dull rural yokels. You can just sweet talk them. Huh? And the last paragraph of the editorial, however, the laws should not be withdrawn. These are excellent. From a market point of view, from a economy's expansion point of view, these are excellent laws. At least 3 editorials in a paper that I grew up with as thinking my paper, the Indian Express. Another thing, all the newspapers, all of them were silent on what were the slogans of the farmers. Go back and look at Singhu, at Shahjahanpur, at Ghazipur, in all the 5 places where they put there, Tikri, they had 2 slogans which were, every second slogan was Ambani, Adani. Anti-Ambani slogans, anti-Adani slogans. no one mentioned that. The television channels that covered the little aspects of the thing did not, you could not have walked through in any of these camps without hearing the end. The farmers knew who they were fighting. And I want to tell you something. Why was this historically important? It's historically important because this is the first time that Indian farmers are fight frontal confrontation with corporate power. The last time they did that was with the East India Company. The last time the Indian farmer confronted the corporate world, that was against the East India Company. Your 1857 mutiny, it was not a mutiny, it was an agrarian uprising. Your Kisan, your Jawan, even today, your Jawan is a Kisan in uniform. That's who he is. Yeah. When I was made to speak in Singhu 5 times, the problem of being the only sympathetic journalist around in the seniors of the profession. When the first time I got up to speak in January 2021, there was a lot of reflected light hurting my eyes, like someone was putting a mirror in your eyes. You know what that was? It was 200 ex-servicemen sitting in the front rows with all their medals. I was just astonished. I took my fellow colleague Amir Malik and we went and spoke to them. We spoke to 5 of them, between them 63 medals, and they had fought in the 62 war, in the 71 war, in the 84 Sri Lankan IPKF. They had fought in Kargil, and they said, at this moment, our sons and grandsons are defending you guys on the border, and you call us Khalistanis and terrorists. Yeah. So that was how we brutalized. Oh, please, 2024 February, don't forget, we became the first nation in the world to use drone warfare against our farmers on the Haryana-Delhi border. Spider drones carrying tear gas canisters and dropped. One of the reasons it got reported was because many of the kids young kids took their phones on video, and it got into the media as well because one of the canisters fell on the shoulder or head of the India Today correspondent, or stringer. So it got into news. And you should see the spirit of that resistance. 2-3 drones were brought down by 17-year-olds by flying kites and getting the manja tangled into the wheels of the Spider drone. It's not, I think that one thing that for me was one of the giant expressions against inequality. You are trying to take our farmers' wealth, hand it over to the corporate world, those laws were not drafted in parliament. They were drafted in corporate boardrooms. Any one of you can tell me that your newspaper, your magazine, or your channel's website, can any one of you tell me that your newspaper or magazine or channel's website ever published the full text of the laws?
No.
PARI did. Yeah. You're not even allowing people to know what those laws are. You're writing editorials on them without giving the reports. For 35 of my 45 years as a reporter, I argued the Indian press are politically free, imprisoned by profit. Today, they're imprisoned both ways, politically and profitably. Yeah. So you do not have, let's get back to my wonderful discourse on Ambani's wealth. I wanted to see You know, my neoliberal economist friends tell me he worked hard. He worked hard and actually he did. Daddy did. But anyway, and even Daddy, by the way, he worked more cleverly than worked hard. And anyway, the thing is this. They said that the promise of capitalism is that anyone who works hard can also be an Ambani. So I decided to take that promise at its face value. I did a calculation. Who is a common Indian? I would say common Indian is somebody working on the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Program. Okay, that we would take as a common Indian. Not like the millionaires who write letters to the editor saying, as a common man, first of all, in the MNREGA, you'll realize that the common man is really a common woman. 65% of all labor done in agriculture in this country is women who do that labor. 65% of the work in the agricultural sector is done by women. Anyway, MNREGA, it's a life jacket for women workers. Third, the MNREGA, which you have now shut down, was the lifeline that saved millions of lives during COVID. When crores of people went back to the villages, in the so-called reverse migration, the MGNREGA saved millions of lives. You were forced to expand it, though you came to power saying it's the worst program in history. I'm going to shut it down. Now they've shut it down. He kept his word. The Vishwaguru keeps his word. Did you ever see in your media one honest discussion on how many people actually died of COVID in India? Can you give me a figure? I'll give you the figures. Lancet said there were 8-9 different studies. I'll give you 4-5. Lancet said, I'm not saying the Lancet is correct, okay? I think they can be very stupid too. But there were 7-8 agencies that gave figures in the same range. Lancet said at the end of 21 months, 4.2 million Indians had died of the coronavirus. Johns Hopkins gave three different lists using different methodologies. Okay, so you could pick your methodology and you'd arrive at a number, but all three figures were about 4 million. WHO said 4.7 million Indians had died, whereupon the government of India launched a blistering attack on the WHO, saying jealousy, this thing, conspiracy to defame India, forgetting that the chief scientist of the WHO was an Indian, a woman, Dr. Soumya Swaminathan. None of it mattered. Then Global Development Council DC said 4.9 million. At this point, the Vishwaguru said 4,86,000. End of discussion. You cannot question the Vishwaguru. Yeah. So they said 4 lakh. Oh, actually the Vishwaguru did update the figure 6 months later, making it 5,21,000. But I don't know about the updates of the others. Here is and then we project ourselves as a model to the rest of the world in how to manage COVID. One more thing about the Ambani, and I'm done with him. So I wanted to see what if my friends, the promise of capitalism, that you can also be Ambani if you work hard. The first thing I want to tell you about being a billionaire, if working hard makes you a billionaire, every woman in rural India would be a billionaire. and in Latin America and in Africa and elsewhere. But since they are not billionaires, I thought let's approach the question from a different angle. What was the average wage of the national average wage? It's now 294 rupees at the point it shut down. 290 rupees a day, daily wage for what's this? For the NREGA. So I wanted to see that can I, as working on the NREGA, accumulate as much wealth as Mr. Ambani? To my pleasant surprise, I found that you could. Just take a little time. 3.6 million years. Okay? 3.6 million years. Yeah. And okay, suppose they tailored their ambitions, not wanting to equal Ambani's wealth, but to equal his annual income. Mr. Ambani very thoughtfully in 2015 froze his income in Reliance at a mere 15 crores. Please remember that 15 crores was his income from Reliance. He's got a hell of a lot of other concerns and companies that he gets paid for, that he gets paid to. So suppose, could they make as much as he could? That 15,000 crores? Yes, they could. And it wouldn't take 3.6 million years. Just a jiffy, I mean, 5,009 years. You can make that much money. So obviously there's something wrong with this idea of hard work makes you money. Right? Our whole thing, I do not know what to say about the sheer obscenity of the inequalities that we are seeing. Can I just show you, where did I keep that?
It's hanging on your pocket.
No, it's hanging up there, sir.
Not this, no.
Okay.
This. I'm just going to show you some quick numbers. Now, can you put that on? I hope there is battery now. Yeah. Look here, the cumulative wealth of India is $200 billion. Okay, yeah, now is 974 billion USD, but it has gone up since then. These figures are dated by 1 year. I haven't yet worked out the new ones. India's budget expenditure was 562 billion US dollars, whereas the cumulative wealth of your billionaires is 974 billion dollars. What does that mean anyway? That 9 is 1.7 times the Indian budget's expenditure and 62 times India's agricultural budget of 1.25 lakh crore rupees or $15.62 billion. Estimated budget for 23-24 was 15.62. As I said, I need to update. Ambani's net worth is 7.5 times your agriculture budget. His net worth in rupees 9.8 trillion in it. Oh, that's lost a bit, okay? They've stopped the damn Russian oil, okay? So that's fallen and they've wrecked the rupee. So, oh, no, I was wrong in telling you 3.6 million years. It's 340.6 million years for you to make that money. The wealth is over 100 times the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Scheme. If you just did a wealth tax of 2%, you could run MNREGA for 26 years. So my favorite saying on the internet on inequality, I don't know who the lady is, but it suits me. If a monkey hoarded more bananas than it could eat, while most of the other monkeys starved. Scientists would study that monkey to figure out what the heck was wrong with it. When humans do it, we put them on the cover of Forbes. Now, this is the COVID period. The billionaires saw 270% plus increase in wealth in 8 years. Okay, please look. There were more health billionaires than manufacturing billionaires. Because suddenly we added 24 health billionaires. Health sector, 32 billionaires. Manufacturing, 31. Tech, which you would expect to be number one, is just 16 billionaires. Tech billionaires were worth 59.5 billion. Manufacturing guys were worth 79.2. But health billionaires, just look at that figure, $112 billion. I've taken time, so I won't tell you about the rest of these. To all those who, in COVID, we made ourselves so proud of champions in online education. One of the problems about online education is that you've got to be able to get online. I sent our reporters to an Adivasi area. I only gave them one instruction. Please tell me how many girls below 18 you find who have their own smartphone. Because you need a smartphone to be able to download the PDFs from the government. The inequality affected girls. But when the reporters came back pop-eyed, they said, what Adivasi girls? No girl is allowed to have a smartphone or an independent phone below the age of 18. You know these girls, right? I mean, give them a phone and the next thing they're eloping somewhere. Right? So, should not tolerate that. Also, then I said, tell me how that girl studies in the online education. How does she access that? You know what they do? Typically in the Palghar, some of you know Palghar, yeah. Thane. Yeah. The Palghar area is very heavily Adivasi populated. Now, daddy and big brother will typically be working in a brick kiln. They'll come back on Saturday night and they'll go back on Monday. When they come back on Saturday night, the girl has to beg her dad, her brother. You can't beg also because he's listening to his music on it, and having his WhatsApp gang on it. Sometimes he does give. Then, having got that phone for 24 hours, she spends most of the time downloading all the PDFs that had piled up for weeks. Now, they've got to pay 200 rupees more because the phone doesn't have that bandwidth for downloading 200 PDFs. So then they download that, and it's time for daddy to go back to the brick kiln. You can't print it out. Printing it out would be costlier than the bloody phone. Okay? Or costlier than a cheap printer. And no printers working. It's COVID time. Shops are shut. Everything locked down. What actually happened was that millions of children in India went without education for 2 years. That is inequality. That is inequality. Then, do you know what happened to girls in schools and colleges? How many of you'll know all this if you read the People's Archive of Rural India, any one of the 15 languages. Our correspondent in Bundelkhand, herself a young woman, called me to tell me what was going on with young girls. The biggest program covering every block of this country, the biggest development program covering every block of this country was the Kishori Suraksha Yojana, the sanitation pads distribution to girls. In every block of the country, sanitation pads are given free to girls going to government and other colleges and schools from the age group 11 to 18. Now once you shut down the schools, we all noticed that midday meals went, but we didn't think millions upon millions of girls are now without sanitary pads. They can't afford to buy them. UP alone, that number was 1.1 million girls. Then what did they do? They went back to extremely unhygienic methods of, dirty cloth, all sorts, leaves, all sorts of things that they did. And there is a rash of ailments amongst all of them. We did the story, you can see it in the People's Archive. To this date, the program has not been fully restored. It's not been fully restored. Yeah? So you had that kind of inequality. Now, remember the Gujarat model and all that? The tables I'm going to run you through, and they're too small for you to see. I'm going to show you how many rural people have access to a computer. Guys, which is Silicon Valley of India? Bangalore. How many people in rural, what is the percentage of families in rural Karnataka with access to a computer? Guesses? Bids? 2%. UP has a UP has a high number because of Noida. It has a slightly better number because there is a part of UP that is really Delhi. Okay? Then the equation between equality, inequality and access is so easy if you ripple through these. This is the last. This is the NSS report. NSS report on social conditions and facilities in education. Do you know what it shows us? Kerala and Tamil Nadu are way ahead of the rest of the country. They are relatively more egalitarian. Kerala is way ahead of Tamil Nadu. Do you know that women having access to internet and using the internet actually, rural women in Kerala is much more than men in urban Gujarat, Rajasthan and Haryana. Rural women in Kerala have a better figure than urban male in Gujarat. There is one of the tables, Vibaji, is that having facility is one thing. How many have actually used it in the last 30 days? You know that you have done a number of those kind of surveys. That shows us that the women of Kerala are way ahead of the male population of many other states. Egalitarianism, relative egalitarianism. Okay? Higher literacy, higher everything. You know, one of the things that struck me when you invited me here and told me that this will be in a library. I am a lover of libraries, and I have just done a second story on the man I consider the greatest librarian in the world. His name is P.V. Chinnathambi, and 12 years ago I found him when going to Edamalakudi. It is the least literate region of Kerala, in Idukki district. The only tribal panchayat in the entire state of Kerala. 18 kilometers, you have to walk 5 kilometers from Munnar to Pettimudi. Pettimudi, you're walking 18 kilometers incline to reach. So we go there, we do our stories. The finest women's group that I have ever seen, and I've seen thousands, was in that village. But in the wilderness, this panchayat, by the way, is exclusively one tribe, which is unusual. Mudavats. They are people who fled Madurai after the Cheras destroyed the Pandyas for the last time, and they went into the hills. They are bilingual, fluently Tamil and Malayalam. But they are the least literate community of Kerala. There are only 2,500 Mutavans in the world. Yeah. Please take that least literate in Kerala with a pinch of salt. Least literate in Kerala is much better than any state in the Hindi belt. But we come across a lonely, where the elephant migration takes place, we see a 73-year-old guy sitting. And on the board, it says Akshara, Gym, Tea Shop and Library. His name is P.V. Chinnathambi. And I asked him, Chinnathambi, what are you doing here? He says that I feel very humiliated that my tribe has not caught up with the rest of Kerala. So I've given up all my other work and I've come here and settled here. Then we chatted. He gives people free chai if they come and browse the books. But then he made it very clear, black chai, I can't afford milk and sugar. But sometimes I found that he was serving people a free meal, very Spartan meal, dal, something like that. Yeah. Then in Kerala you don't interview people, you have banter. South Tamil Nadu and Kerala, they are people who are with a very strong sense of humor and sarcasm and everything else. So I told him, okay, Chinnathambi, enough of this. I have seen your chai, have had your chai, I've eaten your biscuits and mixture. I don't see your damn library. He took me to the bedroom, pulled out 2 gunny sacks. You know the gunny sacks in which you can put 25 kilograms of rice. And lays out the books as he does every day, 160 books. And not a single bestseller, chicklet, all classics. International, European, Malayalam, Tamil, Indian classics. There is Gandhi, there is Marx, political science classics. There is Topil Basi's incredible polemic, you made me a communist. Yeah. There were books by Kamala Das, there were books by M.T. Vasudevan Nair, by Bashir, Vaikom Bashir. And then, I'm from Andhra but born and brought up in Tamil Nadu. By the way, Mahabharata or Ramayana are pretty young people. The oldest epic poem that you will find written, Silapadikaram. Silapadikaram is absolutely the oldest. And even a Modi now, because it's election time, is saying that. I told him, come on, Chinnathambi, are you seriously telling me that your Mudavans, whom you are so worried about, are coming and reading Silapadikaram? He brought out neat register. Like when we were in school packing, you cover everything with brown paper. Yes. So he brought one and neatly entered register. There are only 25 families in that hamlet. Books borrowed 37 in the last year. 37. Silapadikaram had been taken 6 times. And people had written comments. The 6 of us, 7 of us, very noisy people as journalists are, we just stood and shut up in silence. We were blown away by this guy's sacrifice and idealism and everything else. When we were leaving, we saw one more notebook. He was writing his autobiography. He is a 6th standard dropout. 6th standard dropout. So this would have been Kerala in the 50s when he dropped out. And he made this incredibly profound statement. Knowledge is far more powerful than education. And that you're going to get through libraries. 12 years later, this year, I found him again. I took him to the Kerala Lit Fest. And I introduced him to the people of Kerala in Trivandrum as the greatest librarian I know with the smallest library that I've seen. Oh, it's when we did the story on him 12 years ago, people from MIT Library, people from Cambridge Librarians Association contacted me for permission to reproduce the story, and they wanted to donate books, but they were too late. People in Kerala donated so many books. Chinnathambi put out a notice to all of us saying, no more books, there's no more space. I can't keep them, they'll get destroyed in our rains. He's on the slope. I can't protect the books. Because he said it is now more than 2,000 books. From 160 to 2,000, 2 months. And what it told us about the people of that state, what it told us about the Mudavans who come and borrow Silapadikaram, what it told us about a people's thirst for knowledge. 12 years later, I get him onto the platform. The library still exists. Remember that he was at the crossings of the elephant migration. He shifted the library a little further into another forest because he said, that time he told us, climate change is affecting these elephants. They're getting very aggressive with the deforestation and various other things which I don't understand, but 1 week, within the same week after he shifted, the elephants leveled the library, but he had saved all the books. So he's continuing to run it. I don't know, I mean, think if you had 1,000 librarians like that. Huh? What would be your world if you had 1,000 librarians like that? He saw it as an issue of inequality between what his Mudavan tribe had access to and others didn't. Well, others did. He saw that. Chunilal saw the legal inequalities. Chinnathambi saw the educational inequalities, the knowledge inequalities. I have bored you to death with economic inequalities, wealth inequalities, income inequalities. What do you do about it? What can we do about it? And what I posed the question along with the title, what should authors, writers, poets, what should we be doing? Look, whether it's journalism, whether it's painting, whether it's filmmaking, whether it's writing books, whatever, great journalism or great filmmaking, whatever, great journalism is that which engages with the great processes of its time. What are those great processes? COVID, the reverse migration, the greatest inequality in India's history, higher than the British Raj in 1939-40. As Thomas Piketty's Inequality Lab report shows you, not only does it show you that, it shows that 90% of Indians' billionaire wealth is held by Savar, upper caste people. That's what it shows us. Okay? So when you know all these things, when you're engaging, look how we have managed to. I forced them at one point to engage, and they've calmly disengaged from the agrarian crisis. With the result that for many people, 2 lakh Punjabi, Haryanvis and sympathizers from elsewhere, landing up was a huge surprise. It wasn't a huge surprise for me. Yeah? So the thing is this, it's not trying to get which paper is better. I want to tell you this, there is a huge difference between these two entities. Media and journalism are not the same entities. Media are corporations. They exist to maximize profit for the top shareholders. Look, Jeff Bezos, richest man in the world, has sacked 300 journalists in the Washington Post. Does he lack money? Nothing. Not at all. Not at all. It has nothing to do with money. Do you know that in the COVID period, I was a part of the subcommittee of the press council on the subject. Indian media, after the Vishwa Guru had done the one thing that I praised him for, So one thing that I will always say was a great action. On the night the lockdown was declared, Vishwaguru said, list of essential services. For the first time, media was introduced in essential services, which meant that your jobs are protected. Like you don't sack people in the fire brigade when the city is on fire. Okay? Despite that, in the next 24 months, the Indian media sacked 3,500 journalists and 15,000 non-journalist media persons. Okay? It is illegal, but they have the year of the Vishwaguru. More their guru than mine. So you had this unbelievable levels of inequality, people making use of that situation. 750 journalists at least died of the coronavirus. That's why, Nicholas, I gave some of that money to those who died, because their newspapers, let alone not giving them compensation, didn't even mention in its columns that they had died. You know, I have covered 900 households where farmers took their own lives. And every time you ask yourself, where is our moral outrage? Where is our moral outrage? I'm sure that in most other countries in the world, yeah, if the number of farmers, official figures who have taken their lives is more than 470,000. Almost 500,000 farmers have taken their lives according to the National Crime Records Bureau. And please, you should also know this. Every suicide that happens, there are at least 12 to 15 attempts at suicide. The police says 7 to 9. The non-profits which work, the unions that work with the farmers, they say 12 to 15 attempts lead to, you'll see, one suicide. Most of them don't get recorded. And the amount of ridicule, polemic we went through to make that an issue. Everywhere people saying, you know, a venerable fellow journalist in the heart of Vidarbha, which is the epicenter of all the effing suicides that you can ask for, stands up and asks me at a meeting, Sainath ji, ye sab theek hai? Yes, all. But aren't these fellows killing themselves because they are consuming so much alcohol? Are they the only people who consume alcohol? My answer to him, and I want you all to know that answer, yeah, and that was a huge conference of journalists of Vidarbha. And I said that, yeah, if excessive consumption of alcohol is driving suicide numbers, damn it, there'll be no journalists left in the world. And very few academics. And no human rights activists at all. Okay, so yeah, this is, I mean, how much have we desensitized ourselves to this? One, you can fight for what is in your constitution. I think the time has come for MGNREGA. Rahul Gandhi says, I'll restore it the moment we come to power. I'm saying now it has to go much further than that. It cannot be that you do something that someone can throw out in the dustbin. The directive principle on right to work must now be made a fundamental right. The directive principle on right to food has got to be made a fundamental right. RTE was such a pathetic amputation of the real directive principle. With the result, I go to schools and I see, and I'm asking the driver's daughter, what is it like to, cohabit with all those rich children? She says, we never see them. We are taught in separate hours in a separate school. Okay? That's how it works. RP is working. You know, that the idea of these levels of inequality, believe me, no society in history has been able to sustain them. And if you can already see we are not sustaining them. How many parts of the country are in flames? At the root of much you will see are the inequalities. Much of it you will see those inequalities. So either we destroy that or it destroys us. As individuals, every one of you has the capacity to do plenty. You have the capacity to do plenty. Yeah? I think all our thoughts work in whatever we do has to be through the framework of justice. As I've been saying for a year now, as the media destroys this what they call journalism, if journalism is to have any meaning, any value, the J in journalism must stand for justice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Without that, I am 45 years a reporter. And I'm telling you, if it doesn't have that input of justice, it isn't worth the journalism you're doing. Whether you're a writer or a poet, you write that Ambani ki shadi, you write, make a film, do what you can, and also support independent media. You know how much bellyaching you do about how Times of India did this, how Express is doing that. So what are you doing? Are you supporting those who are on a different track, trying to do something different? The People's Archive of Rural India has no fee. It has no subscription fee. It charges you nothing. It has open access in 15 languages. Yeah, we depend on donations. We don't take government funds, not that the government will ever give me any funds. No, by the way, the Labour Ministry once asked us to make a film. And when they got the idea of what we would be saying, you know, they felt belabored. So you have that capacity. No one should complain if you are not subscribing to two independent media. As middle class people who have that capacity, yeah, are you subscribing? In our case, you can't even do that because we do it free. We just ask you, depend on your generosity to support it. I also want to tell you what that does for journalism. You can take Times, Hindustan Times, Express and Hindu, see how many awards they've won in the last 11 years. Because that's how long PARI has been in existence. In the last 11 years, we have won 102 journalism prizes, which is one every 43 days on average, 44 days on average. Yeah, we'll all go bankrupt, and I know that at some point, but you have a treasury of 25 years from now. Anyone wants to know what this country was like, what did people eat, drink, dance, they'll have to look at PARI. If you want to know what Indians look like, and you go to Times of India, you will think that every Indian looked like Salman Khan or Katrina Kaif. And every political person looked like Modi or Shah. You want a different thing. You know, everyone, and though it's maybe not in my interest to do so, but I encourage everyone in every region, start your own local archive. Yeah, take up the endangered languages. PARI runs an endangered languages program. We are trying, learning from Ganesh Devi, we are trying to really focus on the languages that are disappearing. And documenting them is one way of helping them survive. Do you know, between Ganesh Devi's figure, last 50 years, 225 languages died. That means one every 90 days. Yeah. So don't tell me there's nothing we can do, and there's tons that you can do. The first is also intellectual self-defense. about the crap around you in the world of WhatsApp and everything else. But I have really overshot, and I'm very sorry, and thank you all very much for your patience.
Short, and thank you, sir, for for the breadth and the depth of your knowledge, your experience, and for sharing that with us, including the stories of Chunnilan and Thambi, and seeing the breadth and the relationship between the sort of Marcos level of corruption and the obscenity of the Forbes number 3. We are number 3, right? We are number 3, and I think 158 on Press Freedom Index.
Now 152 because others have been
Push below us. I think Somalia is we're just below Somalia, I think, and well, that's not bad, I suppose. And our human index. So one of the questions that occurs to me is the tension between being number 3 on one side and 152, 178 on the other. When will this thread snap? And so since you are a journalist, and there are quite a few of us here who have to do with writing and journalism and the spread of knowledge, and there are plenty of teachers here, the role of the media, which is very different from the role of what journalists do, and the role of people who do anything but cha-cha over tea, or whether with milk and sugar or without. Where does this is the question that's uppermost in my mind, because it's quite clear that without transparency, without information, and so without a free press, a truly free press, hopes are quite dim, and maybe we are sort of standing on a tightrope between these two ends, and maybe it will snap, or maybe it won't. But this is where we are at, and this is the moment to mark, and this is a moment to ponder what we can do to bring more transparency and actually information into our lives, and also spread it beyond that. So thank you for your words, sir. And since we are very low on time, we will continue. We have time. We have time for a few questions from somebody we haven't heard from before, if I may. Sir.
मेरे पास कोई सवाल नहीं है, मैं तो
छोटा प्लीज।
दून लाइब्रेरी को थैंक्स कहना चाहता हूं कि उन्होंने एक बहती हुई धारा के विपरीत जाके एक ऐसे व्यक्ति को यहाँ सामने प्रस्तुत किया है कि जो ठाकुर सुहाती बात नहीं कहते, समय के प्रतिकूल, समय के समानांतर उन्होंने अपनी बात कही है, और बहुत सारे तथ्य, बहुत सारी चीजें हम लोग सुनते रहे हैं। तो सर, आज का व्याख्यान हम सब लोगों के लिए वास्तव में एक प्रेरक टिप्पणी भी था, और कुछ संभावनाओं का द्वार भी खोलता है। और मैं एन रविशंकर साहब को और पूरी टीम को, प्रोफेसर जोशी साहब को धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूं आज के व्याख्यान के लिए। बहुत-बहुत धन्यवाद।
Just have one question which pops up in my head sometime. When there is so much of wealth and inequality getting concentrated, sometimes I feel, where do we make dent into that? How do we matter? How our lives matter? What we do, what we create, how to make it matter?
I see listening to my post discussion in day in my Kaveri hostel. I just want to ask him one question. What is this command they recently signed accord with India and US on agriculture? Will devastate India's agriculture and aggravate farmer suicide. It is total surrender of India to Trump.
Okay. Thank you for the question, sir.
They taught us the meaning of the word resistance. I think that's what we do. We resist. And I think that they also taught us something else. That belly aching about it doesn't get you far if you're not prepared to stand up and fight for it. Yeah? You know, that time, the mountain went to Mohammed. Right? They went all the way from Punjab. Do you know that how many farmers across the country responded to them? I traveled part of the way with 2,000 farmers from Nashik alone in Maharashtra. They went mostly to the Shah Jahanpur, that was left controlled, the Shah Jahanpur camp, which is on the Haryana-Rajasthan border. You know, the little surveys and studies done in Singhu, 21 different languages were recorded. 21 different languages in the Singhu camp. People were showing solidarity. That's the next thing that you should be doing, that all of us should be doing. Solidarity. Tomorrow when people are getting up and fighting for the right to work, fighting for the restoration of Manrega, where do you and I stand? I just want to share one little thing with you, what I do, how I remind myself of how difficult that life is. And I do it to this day. When I go out into the countryside, which is most of the year, at least 2-3 sites, Manrega sites, my friend Purushottam Thakur in Chhattisgarh and I, or we go and try to do that work. And we are dead in 1 hour, 2 hours. Yeah, and there's some 13-year-old girl wearing a sari so that she can pretend she is more than 14 and not be turned away from there, doing that work and happily doing twice the amount of digging that we can do in the same time. Yeah? It's necessary to remember what it feels like to do the work that we ask others to do at pathetic wages. That's very okay. Resistance, solidarity, speaking out. Was it Hesse or Grass who said, the duty of every citizen in a democracy is to never shut up. That okay. Also, I said a number of other things. The point, I think we are coming upon the era of boycotts. You know, certain kinds of things which are brought to you. You know, whether, which links to his question about what's happening. From the, did any of your media, newspapers tell you that the moment Trump said 50% tariffs, what did the government of India do? They removed the pathetic 11% tariff on cotton. You know that cotton growers account for 3/5 to 4/5 of all farmer suicides. 3/5 of all farmer suicides are cotton growers and soybean. There is a very peculiar relationship between cotton grower and soybean grower in Maharashtra. The soybean grower is yesterday's cotton grower who took such a hit. He has moved to a slightly cheaper, lower priced, lower input cost product called soybean. Yeah. But a season down, if he's held back some money, he'll go back to cotton. Okay. So what immediately happened was not what Trump did. It's what we did. We removed that 11% duty on cotton, and the highest MSP ever that the cotton farmer had struggled and got collapsed. Okay, 8,125 rupees. I was telling myself, no need to go to Vidarbha this 2-3 months. They've got a good MSP. All we have to do is to see that the MSP is enforced which they are in a fighting militant mood, they will do. And CCI is there, Cotton Corporation of India is there. Then this 11% duty was removed. Trump, at the same time, Trump announces his 50% duty. The Samyukta Kisan Morcha leadership came to Vidarbha and requested me and Jaideep Hardikar to join them because we have covered the place for 30 years. So we went. Instead of lecturing the SKM leaders, I told them, listen to what the crowd will say. I asked a crowd of 4,000, 5,000 farmers in 3 different places. How many of you have got the MSP of 8,000 plus? Not a hand. How many of you have got 7,000 plus? Not one hand. How many of you have got 6,500? Every hand went up. Then, which meant that lakhs of people were selling their product at below the cost of production. Okay, then, see, there is no direct tariff for cotton. Please understand, Trump's cotton tariffs come under different heads. The one that affects our poor people dramatically is garments, apparel. Garments, textiles and apparel. What are our garments and textiles? Cotton. What is our apparel? Leather. So all the damn Dalit led hide and tanning industries, small, tiny pocket, hundreds of them shut down in Tamil Nadu alone. I don't know what happened in Agra and elsewhere. I'm trying to find out. They just shut down because you've opened the market to apparel without, you put 50% thing on it. Then fishermen got jammed. Andhra Pradesh, my home state, 85% of our seafood export is to the United States. Government said, aha, we found a market in Australia now. Australia's population is 9% of United States population. So with all these things, even before the bloody negotiations, you were in a mess. And then, look at how your media report. Oh, we brought down 50% to 18%. You have brought your tariffs down to 0%. And you've given a promise, you've given a goddamn promise to buy $500 billion of American manufactured goods. Yeah. Meanwhile, the international politics is affecting the soybean grower. When Trump hit China, instead of whining and collapsing like us, they told Trump, take your goddamn goods and go. We won't buy. The biggest export of USA to China is what? Soybean. $16 billion it would have been this year. It was $13.5 billion last year. So soybean, Trump is stuck with $16 billion of soybean and no place to sell it. Besides, the man goes and gives $40 billion bailout to Argentina, which is the biggest competitor with American farmers in export of soybean. So you can imagine how thrilled the American farmers were with that. I asked the farmers in the meetings in front of the leadership, I asked them, now if we are caving in and US has got $16 billion worth of soybean unsold, where are they going to dump it? 1,000 hands went up saying, yes, hamare sir ke upar. Yeah, so that's what's happening, and it will get worse because the free trade agreement. The worst thing is that all of you, your access to cheap medicines is threatened, because in the EU agreement, we are giving incredible power to Pfizer, Bayer, and all those jokers who are now going to be able to act under intellectual property rights, where we have protected generic drugs. Remember that India saved millions of lives who would otherwise have been lost to AIDS if it had not been for Simla doing the generic version. Even that, they were going to get it knocked out in the WTO, but Nelson Mandela, made an appeal to the United Nations. Don't do this. You will condemn millions of Africans to a Holocaust. Then they withdrew. Okay? So you had, now when you're doing that, the generic industry, drug industry, do you know who put out a notice yesterday begging, don't do this? Doctors Without Borders. Médecins Sans Frontières put out a press release yesterday. Most of the medicines we use in 80 countries in the world is sourced from Indian generics. Yeah? And what the hell are we going to do now? And they have put a detailed note on how it's going to affect all of you and me. The US agreement, they are saying openly, it includes agriculture. And your milk and dairy industries are unbelievably exploited and fragile. By the way, 93% of people involved in labor and dairying are women. And do you know that 2016, when the wave of unrest in farmers started in Maharashtra, the big fight of dairy farmers was this. The government was offering them 18 rupees a litre. You know what? That's cheaper than a bottle of Bisleri. So you can imagine what kind of impact it will have if we do not have resistance. Yeah.
So, on that note, I think we can close out. Not the session, because this will of course continue, and now I hand it over to Nicholas to close things out. Thank you.
At this late hour, I don't wish to stand between you, and I just wanted to say that, in the last 3 lectures, we have been treated to different perspectives on the idea of India. This was a very scintillating and long discourse on how to engage with this idea of India. We learned about the linguistic civilization that is India. We learned about PILs as ways of dealing with the challenges that civil society encounters. And now we've talked about inequality. I think this has been a fabulous discourse, important in its import at this point of time. And I think we are enormously benefited. Thank you so much, Dr. Sainath. सुरजीत दास जिनकी स्मृति में ये व्याख्यान माला चलाई जा रही है, अपने आप इस विषय से अपने को बहुत नज़दीक मानते थे। करीब 10 साल उन्होंने असंगठित क्षेत्र के मजदूरों के साथ काम किया, मजदूरों के साथ नहीं, मजदूरों की व्यवस्था के साथ सरकार में, और बहुत संजीदगी के साथ वो सोचते थे कि कैसे इस व्यवस्था को परिवर्तित किया जाए। जो पॉलिसी निर्माण में उन्होंने अपना योगदान दिया। मैं समझती हूँ कि at this time in the history of the nation, to confront all of us with the truths that Dr. Sainath has presented before us, and to also indicate the pathway that each one of us should be able to select and move forward on. It's a very, very important, challenging, and also something that we need to ponder on as we go out from here. because it's not as if the lecture ends and our responsibility ends. We need to really think about how we go forward. Dr. Sainath, through his network PARI, which I have had occasion to look very briefly through, I hope we will in Uttarakhand, I was mentioning to him, make use of this beautiful network that he has put out and ensure that there is more visibility for the civil society initiatives that Uttarakhand has and is very proud to host. I think that would be a very, very meaningful lesson for us to carry forward. Shashwati, in a very self-effacing way, has surrendered her time to others, and I think she would have very sensitively brought many other issues to the table, but we've not had enough time for listening to her. Doon Library and Dr. Joshi, I think they are the people who have enabled this series to be carried forward. Without them, there is no series. And therefore, they are the lifeblood